If you're renting in Utah right now, you're making a $100,000 mistake. I'm a 22-year mortgage veteran, and a new survey just dropped of 100 top economists in the United States, and they projected home prices will climb by 20%, more than 20% over the next 5 years. And in Utah, with Utah's median prices over 500,000, that's over $100,000 in home equity that'll be created in the next 5 years. Now, before I get into the data and the survey, let's talk about the number one challenge that most people are facing who are renting. That's the monthly payment. I got a phone call last week from a young man who's in the same boat where his monthly payment is the biggest, scariest part. And I gave him a couple of suggestions. And so let's talk about some solutions to overcoming this monthly payment. So I gave him two payment hacks, two ways to hack his payment. And then I gave him a third idea, if you will, in order to help him emotionally get ready for this experience. And so, hi, my name's Josh Thomas. I'm a mortgage broker in the state of Utah. So as I continue through this, this is kind of my background, right? I've done this for over 20 years. So this young man gives me a call and doing great. He's got a great income, great job, and young family, and they're ready to buy a house, but he's super scared about this whole monthly payment idea. I even told him my own personal story, and he laughed because he very much related to that story. My story is that when I first bought a house, I told my wife, well, I didn't have good credit when I first started in this business. I didn't even know anything about credit. So, like most first-time home buyers, I had to learn. And so I started learning and I started applying it to my own credit. And I remember I had terrible credit, guys. I had a 560 score at one point. But it was funny because when I had a 560 score, I didn't even know what a good credit score was or no. Somebody told me my score is 560 and I asked him if that was good. And so no, it's not. To me, it's pretty low. And he thought that was funny too because yeah, it's real, right? Anyway, I went to working on my credit and I started doing all the things that I teach people to do, and my score became a 709. And I was super excited and I was like, yeah, I got a 709 score. And I went home and I told my wife, and this is funny if you guys know my wife, but she didn't even, I don't even remember her saying anything like, yay, that's great, or congratulations. It was like, when are we buying a house? And so all my excitement, all my thunder was just like, and all that I felt was panic. And I was like, huh. And I told him a story. I told him this part of the story, and I said, so I had this panic, and my wife's like, what's the matter? And I said, I haven't even been married to you yet for 30 years. How can I like make a promise to a bank that I'm going to make payments to them for 30 years? I wasn't even 30 years old yet. I don't know what I'm going to do in 30 years. And she asked me a really important question that I shared with him, and he related to this, and that was, if she asked me, she goes, so what if we couldn't pay our rent payment? What would happen if we couldn't pay our rent payment? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go get a job and another job, and I'll do side work and I'll side hustle. And if I've got a beg on the side of the street, I'll do that. But I'm gonna find any way that I possibly can to make that payment. And she goes, well, what's the difference between that and a mortgage? So that was pretty much that. She convinced me pretty quick. And so, and I imagine listening to this, if you feel that way, you may have been convinced right now too. So anyway, that's kind of my story. And I shared that with him, and he felt that he was like, yeah, that's wise woman, wise woman. And that's true, but that's also off topic. So he felt the concern though with the size of the payments. And so I wanted to go ahead and share it with you. So I asked him, like, what's your monthly payment? And he goes, we got a great deal in rent. We're only paying $1,000 a month. And I said, that's great. And I said, are you doing anything else like contributing to retirement or anything like that, or saving up for the down payment or whatever? And all told, he's paying about $1,000 a month for that as well. So he's doing a pretty good job, there. But that means total out of pocket, he's about $2,000 a month currently. And so I also talked to him about a couple other things, but let me go ahead and just share with you the two payment hacks that I gave him. So number one, you guys have probably heard of buy downs, right? When you pay extra in closing costs and you get a lower interest rate, that's called a buy down. Now there's permanent buy downs and there's temporary buy downs. A permanent buy down is what most people are used to if they've heard of this concept at all. But a temporary buy down is something that's kind of become more in vogue over the last 3 years. It wasn't really a thing for probably almost 20 years. When I first got into the business, it was a thing, and then it kind of went away with the Great Recession. But this temporary buy down, it's the same idea. So you pay extra closing costs to get a lower interest rate, but instead of getting a slightly lower interest rate, you're getting a way lower interest rate, right? And so you might, if today's rate's 6%, and you might do a normal permanent buy down, you might get down to like 5.5, right? Maybe something like that, and it costs you quite a bit. Well, for that same cost on a temporary buy down, you might be all the way down to like a 4%. Right. And so obviously a 4% is going to create a much smaller monthly payment. And in a $500,000 house, it's probably over $600 a month in reduced monthly payments. So if your monthly payment's maybe $3,500 a month, now you're $2,900 for a $500,000 house. So I shared that with him. That really what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it rang with him, I guess. It vibrated. I don't know. Anyway, um, you guys know what I'm trying to say, and I'm the guy on video making an idiot of myself. Anyway, I also shared with him this other concept of this is something you may have heard of, house hacking and stuff, where you actually rent out a portion or a large chunk of the property. I had one client who actually, when she bought a house, her monthly payment, it was a smaller condo, so 320,000, I think, was the price. And rates weren't that great at the time, but we were able to get her a 2-1 buy down, just like I just described. And her monthly payments, I think, came in around 2,100 a month. But it was a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath townhome, and she was able to rent out. One of the challenges she ran into was parking spots, by the way. And so she had to shop around to find a place that even allowed for more than one parking spot. Anyway, she did find one, and in that one, she was able to rent out 2 bedrooms, so one to a friend of hers and one to a cousin. And so she was able to collect $600 each, and as a result, she was able to get $1,200 to help offset her $2,100 house payment. So that worked out really, really well. Other scenarios is where somebody has a house, they buy like a Rambler where it's got the upstairs and the downstairs. And the downstairs is a finished basement. It's got a kitchen. It's got a walkout entrance, so it's separate. We call those mother-in-law apartments or ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And if you do something like that, you might be able to rent out that basement for, 12, $1,500. Those ones tend to cost a little bit more because, I mean, they're not necessarily bigger, but they're obviously more desirable for this reason. And so they're usually going, in the high 500s, maybe 600. And so a monthly payment might be, $4,000 a month, maybe even $4,200 a month or something. But same thing, you can do like a payment hack. So you get that payment down to maybe 3,500 a month. And then if you're collecting rent from the basement, maybe 1,500, that means your first year payment is only $2,000 a month. Well, obviously that connects well with the guy that I was talking about, because that puts him right where he's at, right? What he can afford already. So that's kind of a couple of payment hacks, and then I'll finish it with the third thing that I told him, which was something we can do to kind of emotionally prepare ourselves or see if we can afford it really. And so where he's already paying $2,000 a month, I suggested if he needs to go ahead and pay an extra $1,000 a month to someone like a parent or somebody that he trusts that's not going to keep his money, but somebody that will give it back to him. But for the time being, it's out of his hands, right? It's gone. And if he would just pay that extra $1,000 a month, now he's paying 3,000 a month. And after 3 months, if he's fine, then he's gonna be fine buying a house. And the people can then gift the money back to him, and now he's got more money for a down payment, right? So those are some suggestions and tips that we talked about to help him overcome the monthly payment. Now that I've crossed that bridge, let's go ahead and jump into this survey. So I know surveys are really boring, and I know I'm really geeky, and so I tend to like this stuff more than most people. But check this out. This is sick. This is, like I said, 100 grand. But I'm going to go ahead and show you some really cool stuff in here. So let me go ahead and just introduce the survey as you're now looking at it. So this is a survey done by Fannie Mae, powered by Pulsenomics. You can see them up here in the top right corner. But Pulsenomics, what this survey is they basically send out a survey to, I don't know, 150 different financial planners, or excuse me, economists in the country. And they ask them, what their home price appreciation expectations are. And it's really, really interesting. You'll notice I've got a couple people highlighted in blue. So let me go ahead and explain those, and then I'll dive into some more details in this. So Each of these people then will send a response. And this particular survey, there's somewhere, it depends on the questions, but there's around 118 responders. And it's their what information they share is the information that's then created and added to this chart. Okay. The people that are in blue are people that have won what's called a Crystal Ball Award at least 4 times. And so what it is they'll make their projections, and then at the end of this year, or the end of the year that they're making projections for, Pulsenomics will then reward them or award them what am I trying to say? Crystal ball award for being able to look into the future accurately. This here is actually my favorite economist that I tend to follow. He is very accurate, knows his stuff very well, albeit not always perfectly. I do not know who this one is here, but he won the Crystal Ball Award several times, or I should say they. They actually had 8 trophies, so I don't know if that meant each of them won it 4 times or what, I don't know. But and then there's quite a few actually others that have won quite a few awards as well, but they weren't on this survey. Just 3 were on this survey. So if we go over here, what they're projecting is that this year they're expecting home prices will climb by 3.2 and 3.5%. And then next year by 4.4%, 4.5, and so on and so forth. And then this white column over here, this is the cumulative. So 3.2% this year, but 24 months from now will be 7.74% higher than now. And 5 years from now will be 26.28% higher than now. Barry, my favorite, said 29% higher than now. Now, again, remember in Utah, our median home price is like 550,000 now. It's a little over that even. So 20%, 30% increase in home prices. We're talking over $100,000 in just the next 5 years. Okay. I'm going to scroll down a little further and show you kind of how the rest of this chart works. What they're doing is they're basically taking everybody's projections on the whole chart and they're averaging them together. And so if you go down here to the bottom, they have the mean, they have the median, the high and the low, and then they got all these other fancy statistical things that many people probably don't even know what they mean. But you can see the median, meaning that half of the projections are higher than this and half of them are lower than this. And there is the high, and there are a couple that are actually projecting negative growth, which means depreciation. And I'm actually going to address that here really quick. It's important to recognize they're projecting decreasing home prices. Now, I've been listening to people for years talk about housing crash, right? There's always somebody projecting a housing crash, particularly when home prices are so high that it's painful for folks, like it's been the last 3 years. But it's important to recognize the difference between a crash and a little tiny bit, 3.4% over 4 years. That is so little. That's literally telling you that your home price today is almost the same as it was. That's $15,000 on a $500,000 house. So what they're telling you, the very worst, this is 100 of the top economists in the country, the very worst projection is that home prices stay the same. Well, they go down 15 grand, right? So for all that crash brothers out there that think that home prices are going to crash, are you legitimately telling me that you're smarter than these 100 people out here? Because that's pretty ballsy. But notice that the median thinks 20%, and that's where the $100,000 came from that I'm talking about. So 20% increase on Utah home prices, and we're talking about over $100,000. So if you're renting today or you know somebody that's renting today, share this video with them. Get out of the renting, buy yourself a house. I know it's painful, but pay attention to all the things I shared and give me a call. Let's get you out of the rut and let's put that $100,000 in your pocket. So if you need help, reach out, DM me, jump on my bio and schedule a call. Let me help you. We've been doing this over 20 years. We have tricks up our sleeves that a lot of folks don't. We can close loans, a lot of lenders can't. And fast, we just take a week or two to close and that's it. That makes you the same as a cash buyer, which will save you money right there because cash buyers get better deals, right? And then we'll help you manage your mortgage after closing, which will put tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands in your pocket afterwards. So there's so much more we can give you. So DM me, let's catch up. You have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your